But we have to October, November economics. The first question says some multinational oil companies extracting oil in developing countries are now required to repair the damage they do to the environment. So which best describe the total cost incurred by the oil companies in such circumstances? So the multinational oil companies, one, they would have incurred private cost. And now they have to repair the damage they've caused the environment. So that means their private cost and their external cost, because they've incurred cost to the third party too. So the answer is B. That means social cost. So private cost plus external cost is social cost. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
So the answer is B, done. So question 2. It said, in an economy, no one can be made better off without making someone else worse off. What does not necessarily follow from this? So the point is, in every economy, you won't enjoy. As soon as you are enjoying something, someone else is suffering for it. That's the point. But what would not make this happen in these options? The first one, it said the condition for allocative efficiency has been met. When you talk about allocative efficiency, it means you think about the welfare of the people. So thinking about the welfare of the people, it would have meant that there's opportunity cost. That is the point. So we have allocated based on prices. So those that are having them are those that are able to pay for them. So those that cannot pay will not have them. So someone is worse off here, yes or no? Productive efficiency. Firms will not be able to produce the quantity they needed if there's no incentive to produce it. So the incentive to produce it is to make more profit. So making more profit would have meant that some people would have been paying out of their neck. So someone is worse off, yes or no? The third point, distribution of income is socially acceptable. If income is socially acceptable, that means the whole society agrees on the distribution of income. Nobody is worse off. So the answer is C. But let's check the D. They said the economy is operating at a point on its productive possibility curve. If the economy is operating at a point in the PPC curve, it would have meant that either capital goods or consumer goods is not being produced. Do you get the point? So those that want capital goods might not be able to get them in the expense of those that want consumer goods. So if we are producing more capital goods, we are producing less consumer goods. If we are producing less consumer goods, we are producing more capital goods. And if we are producing both of them at the same level, it means that it's not going to be sufficient. So one way or the other, someone will be worse off. So the only situation that nobody is going to be worse off is socially acceptability in terms of income distribution. Do you understand? So the answer is C. Clear? Is it clear, please?
Yeah.
The third question, read for me, please.
The government decided to approve a road building scheme because it was socially beneficial. In making its decision, it calculated private costs at $800 million, private benefits at $800 million, and external costs at $150 million. What must have been true about the external benefits of the scheme?
So if government doesn't want to make profit, right? So if the private cost to government is equal to the private benefit to government, it's fine for government. Government is not is not a business organization that thinks about profit maximization. So that means it's fine. So if government has taken this decision to build the road scheme, it would have meant that the external cost is less than the external benefit. So we don't know the external benefit anyway. But if government has taken decision about building this, it would have meant that the external benefit is more than the external cost. Is it clear? So the answer is B. Clear. We go to question 4.
What is it called when the consumer's marginal utility is greater than the price paid for the good?
So what is it called when the consumer marginal utility is greater than the price paid for the goods? First, let's talk about given goods. Given goods are goods that the demand for them increases as the price for those goods increases. Example of given goods are bread, rice, potatoes. And as soon as the price increases, people want to demand for more of it, like to keep them. Maybe it's going to continue to increase. And they don't have ready-made substitutes. Do you understand? What's the substitute for bread? See. So we call them given goods. Do you get the point? So now the question, I think you understand given goods now. We already talked about inferior goods. These are goods that as soon as the level of income increases, their demand falls. So for consumer surplus, the answer is on consumer surplus anyway, because they said, what is it called when the consumer marginal utility? That means the satisfaction you derived from the consumption of extra unit is more than the price you pay for it. That is a surplus for you.
Like, it is the point where you need this.
You consume extra,
Yeah.
but the satisfaction you derived from consuming extra exceeds the price you pay.
Okay.
That is consumer surplus. Is it
Yeah,
clear?
yeah.
So the answer is C.
C.
We go to D. Question 5. Sorry.
A consumer has $3 to spend a day on chocolate bars or toffee bars, which all cost $1 each. The table shows the units of additional satisfaction she gets for consuming each bar. What should she buy to maximize her total utility?
Based on what we have here, it's just a logic thing. The consumer would have, since they are talking about chocolate bars before toffee bars, it would have meant that the consumer would like more of chocolate than toffee.
Okay.
You get the point?
Yeah.
So to reach to maximize her total utility here, she needs to spend $3. But before she would spend $3, she would have think about spending. She would have think about getting more chocolate than toffee bar. So getting 2 chocolate bars will make her to think about another toffee bar. Do you understand the logic there?
Yeah.
So that means the consumer would have taken 2 chocolate bars before thinking about 1 toffee bar, because she has $3, and the chocolate bar is in front of everything.
Yeah.
So that means the answer is B. Is it clear?
Yeah.
It's logic. Go to question 6.
The curve JK and the diagram's consumers a national digit line. Which combination could cause the digit line to shift to GH?
So if it is in GK and it's shifting to GH, that means the demand for goods X would have been reduced. What will make the demand for a good reduces? Increase. There would have been increase in the price of good X. And good X, as soon as there's an increase in demand for good X, which means consumer income would have risen. And that means the first point is that the demand for a good will reduce if the price of the product or the good increases. That's the first point. And based on what we are seeing here, it would have been in GH, because here the demand for good Y increases.
Yeah.
So that means good X is an inferior goods.
Yeah.
Do you get the point?
Yes.
So that means we stop buying good X because the price increases and it's an inferior goods. We start buying good Y because our level of income has increased.
Yes.
Do you get the point here?
Yes.
So the answer is no. A. The answer is A.
Both increases.
Yeah, the price of goods increases, making demand for the goods reduces. And the goods would have been an inferior goods, because at G, that is good Y. So the demand for good Y has increased. So why would they stop buying good X and start buying good Y at an increased price of good Y? It means that the income level has increased. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The demand for good X has increased. At the same time, good Y has increased. But why do they stop buying good X to buy good Y? It would have meant that their level of income has increased and good X is an inferior goods.
Yes.
So go to question 7.
The diagram shows the consumers and difference curves for goods F and G together with the consumer's budget lines. What could explain the movement from X to Z on a diagram?
So if the movement is from X to Z, it would have meant that the price of G has fallen because the demand for G increases. But let's quickly go to the options. They talked about given goods. Given goods don't have substitutes. So that means good G is not a substitute for good F. So take away good given goods. But normal goods, if there's a fall in price of G when G is a normal good, then it shouldn't be a normal goods. It always increases because the demand for a normal good will be when our income level increases. So the option is not C. And the last one, they said a fall in G for G is a given good. G is not a given goods, because if G is a given goods, we won't be talking about F. We said bread doesn't have a substitute. Rice doesn't have a substitute. Wheat doesn't have a substitute. That point in time, there's no ready substitute for them. So we won't talk about given or normal goods here. So the answer is inferior goods. Because for inferior goods, when their prices fall, or when the income level increases, the demand for their products will fall. And that will lead to a fall in their price.
So it's A.
It's A. Is it clear? Question 8.
A firm has a choice between 5 levels of output. The table shows the total cost and total revenue of producing at each output level. The firm could sell whatever output it produces. The firm decides to produce 4,000 units. What is the firm's aim?
If the firm produces at 1,000 units, it would have made a profit of 2,000. If it produces at 2,000 units, it would have made a profit of 6,000. At 3,000, it would have made a profit of 5,000.
So to maximize.
Hold on, please.
No, okay.
Let's finish. At 4,000, it would have made a profit of 5,000. At 5,000, it will break even, right?
Yeah.
So the maximization here, it's not about to maximize profit here. It needs to produce at 2,000 units, but it's not thinking about producing at 2,000 units. So if it wants to maximize sales, it would have produced at 5,000 units. Do you get the point?
Yeah.
It wants to maximize average cost. Can it even maximize average cost here? No, it can't even. It cannot even minimize. To minimize average cost, it would have produced more, because at that point in time, we'll talk about economies of scale. But producing more units, producing more output here, it's not giving. It's only giving break even. The highest output it will produce will break even. I get what I'm saying. So basically, what the firm is trying to do here is to maximize revenue. Do you understand?
Yeah.
If it wants to maximize profit, it will produce 3,000 units or 2,000 units. To minimize average cost, that means to enjoy economies of scale.
If they increase more units.
It has to increase more units, but increasing more units here is giving us a break even.
Yeah.
So which is not possible. So the answer is C.
Break even, maximize sales, right?
Break even.
Yeah.
Yes. So question 9.
At which time of market structure commercial banks usually found?
For banks are in oligopoly. Why? Because the action of one bank affects the operations of another bank. And most of the banks in the banking industry, you see so many large banks and few smaller banks. So the large banks dominate the smaller ones, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So it is an oligopoly. So that was the point. So they say perfect competition because they are all linked their interest rates to that of the central bank. No, perfect competition is not perfect. Monopolistic competition is not monopolistic. Because if it is monopolistic, it means they have an imperfect market by producing products that can only be differentiated through advertisement. So it is not. So the answer is D. An oligopoly is a market structure where you have few large firms dominating the industry. And that is how banks are, commercial banks are. So the answer is D. Question 10.
What is the condition for operating successful?
Cartel. So if you have to operate a cartel, means you are colliding. And when you are colliding to ensure that consumers are vulnerable. Do you understand? So a large number of firms in the industry, consumers will be having choice to make. So they are not vulnerable with option A. Each firm has a differentiated product. It means they are not in competition. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't bring cartel. C, low barriers to entry of the industry. If there's low barrier, that means it's more of like a perfect competition. So consumers are not worst off here. Strictly enforced production quotas. So here they are producing certain numbers. So that means consumers will only have access. Consumers will only have access to the production they make. So consumers are vulnerable here. So that is the aim of the cartel. So the answer is D. Is it clear? Question 11.
What's essentially essential for a market to become
contestable? A contestable market is the market that is open to actual and potential competition. A contestable market is what? A market that is open to actual and potential competition. So if it is open to actual and potential competition, what does that mean? It means it is free in and free out. So the answer is B. Firms are free to enter and leave the market. Is it clear? Question 12.
Which is generally.
What is generally associated with the principal agent problem? When we talk about the principal agent problem, we're talking about an individual who is the agent who has agreed to go into an action
Mhm.
for the principal who is going to pay the agent for doing that job. So the principal agent is just like the teacher student.
Mhm.
So here they are not using teacher student, they're talking about directors and maybe shareholders. It's a company. So what would be the problem of the director and what would be the problem of the director who has been employed by the principal? Do you understand the point? The principal is the owner of the company. Now the director is the agent who is employed. So there will be a problem here because the director will think more of making more profit for the business than paying revenue or ensuring that the company is growing. That is why the director is employed, right? So the company will be growing. If the company is growing, it gives the director a good reputation. Do you get the point? If the company is growing, that means the director is doing well. It can also increase its salary, yes or no? But the agent or the principal, the company would want more profit.
Yeah.
So that it can pay its shareholders. So there will be a problem between the director and the agent here, the principal and the agent here, because the director has a different aim to that of the owner of the business. The owner of the business wants more profit to be able to pay more dividends, but the director wants growth for the business so that it can improve its own reputation also. So the agent problem here, that's the principal agent problem. So the director prefers company growth to greater shareholder dividends.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that's A. Question 13.
The table shows the output of chairs at a factory when different numbers of workers are employed. When will diminishing marginal
Returns to labor set in. So zero numbers of workers, zero number of chairs produced. One number of workers, 7 numbers of chairs produced. 2 numbers of workers, 17 produced. 3, 36. So let's check the first and the second. As soon as the second worker is being employed, additional 10 chairs were produced. Normally, one person produces 7. Now, with 2 workers, they produced 17. That means the employment of one additional worker increased by 10.
Oh, okay.
Do you get it? But when the third worker was employed, they produced 26. It's not even increasing by 10. It's now increased by 9. So there's diminishing. It diminished from 10 to 9.
Yeah.
So that means when the third worker is employed, there's what? There's diminishing. Return to labor.
So it's B.
It's B. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Question 14.
The chart gives information about the average daily wage rate for all industries in India, but could have caused this trend in wage rates. So
look at it. The wage rate continues to increase, right? So if the wage rate continues to increase, it means that labor productivity is increasing. That's the point. But let's check the options here. They said an increase in capital intensive production. If there's capital intensive production, workers will be less used. There's no point paying increasing their wages. An increase in the number of industrial workers. If the numbers of workers are increasing, the wage rate will fall because the supply of labor is more than the demand for labor. The third point, an increase in the number of people unemployed. If no people are not unemployed, what does that have to do with production? It doesn't have anything to do.
Okay.
The answer is D. As as labor productivity increases, firms are making more profit, and that can be a motive for them to increase the wages of workers. So the answer is D. Question 15.
A country has a negative income tax. What is this?
The curve of the national tax in the diagram shows the country initial tax schedule. So if it increases, if it's below, if it's going down to NT1, what would have this been? 1, if the national tax is falling, that is an incentive for workers to work more. Do you understand? But each workers will work based on their income. So not everybody has the same income. So the consequence of this after the tax distribution is that first, the incentive of workers will increase because the tax is falling. But the second point is that after tax distribution income, it will be based on the levels of individual income. It might be any 10, you are 10,000, you are any 7,000. So after tax, you earn less, I earn more than you earn. Do you get the point? Yeah. So let's look at the option. They said, how will this affect work incentive? Work incentive will be strengthened because people want to work more because due to tax reduction. But how is the distribution of income? The distribution of income will be less equal. Why? Because each individuals do not have the same income level. So taxes will be based on each individual income level. So the answer is A. So we go to question 16.
With a fixed supply of skilled workers in our industry, firms can no longer find enough workers to meet their demand for labor. What could be a solution to the problem?
If the demand for labor is increasing, and firms are unable to find skilled workers to do the job. So the only solution is for them to employ unskilled workers and train them.
Yeah,
So the answer is what? D.
provide more training. Okay.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Question 17.
A government is worried about increasing the
monopsony. When you talk about monopsony means one buyer. But here they use monopsony power of employers. It means the employers only have it is only the employers that have bargaining power on wages. Wages does not, they don't, government or employees do not have power over wages. It's only the employers. So government is worried about this. So what can government do? So for government to solve this kind of problem, government have to strengthen the power of trade union so that they can be powerful to negotiate for employees. Government can also introduce minimum wage.
Okay.
Do you understand? And government should control immigration rates, control immigration. That means the number of people coming into the country. Because if the number of people coming into the country is not controlled, the foreign workers might want to work at any wage because they are here to work. Do you get the point here? So government have to strengthen the trade union powers to give employees power, to give trade union power to be able to negotiate better for employees. Government can introduce national minimum wage. That is a law that would make employers to pay certain amounts under the law. If not, they have problems with government. And the last one is controlling immigration, because immigrants are economic workers. So whatever the employers pay them, they might take it. Do you understand? Which might not be good for the citizens. Do you understand? So these are the three things government have to do. Government must strengthen the trade union. Government must strengthen immigration control and raise minimum wage above the equilibrium wage rate. So the answer is B. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Question 18.
What is not a source of market failure?
Market failure would come from imperfect information. That means asymmetric information. Market failure will come from monopoly, because in monopoly, they are price maker and they produce goods that they're willing to produce. They can reduce production to be able to increase price. So they make abnormal profit, which is also market failure. Non-excludability means that your consumption stops my consumption. That is also a kind of market failure. The only thing that is not market failure here is income inequality. Income inequality is macroeconomic objective. It doesn't have anything to do with market failure. So the answer is B. Question 19.
A government regards fresh fruit and vegetables as markets and subsidies.
And subsidizes agriculture to boost their production. What could be a government failure arising from these subsidies? What is government failure? Government failure will come when government intervention becomes another problem in the society. Government is trying to solve market failure. But because of solving the problem of market failure, it's creating another failure. It's creating another cost. That is government failure. So here I said, the answer is B anyway. Government failure occurs when government decisions leads to increase in social cost than social benefit. Than social benefit, not that, than social benefits. So here, cheaper fresh fruit and vegetable, that's good. The answer is B. Lower spending on treating dietary illness is good because now they take more vegetable. So illness will reduce. More jobs picking fruit and vegetable, that's good. People have employment. So the 4 A, C, and D is good for government has done well. But the problem is that land clearance that they will have to use to build to plant these crops reduces the wildlife. That is government failure. So do you understand?
Yeah.
So the answer is B. Question 20.
Which type of unemployment is associated with deficiency in aggregate demand?
If there's deficiency, that's a fall in aggregate demand. A fall in aggregate demand will lead to cyclical unemployment. People don't have money to spend. Because they don't have money to spend, businesses will not be able to make revenue from people.
Yeah.
As businesses are unable to make revenue from people, they disengage workers.
Yeah.
As they disengage workers don't have money, they can't buy. So it's cyclical.
Yeah.
So the answer is A. 21.
And the background of the equilibrium level of income, and OQ is the employment level of income in a closed economy.
For a closed economy, we're talking about an economy that is not open, which means it's about consumption, investment, and government spending.
Okay.
No import and export. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So if there's consumption, investment, and government expenditure, what happens? They said, okay, what would have caused a deflationary gap? A deflationary gap is, what is deflation itself? A fall in the general price level. So there will be a fall in general price level when the prices of goods, when expenses increase, expenditure increases. And based on this graph, the expenditure is at V. What would have caused the expenditure to be at V? It would have meant that the prices of goods in that country are falling.
Okay.
So consumption, investment, and government is at U, but expenditure has increased to V at this point.
Yeah.
So that's the deflationary gap. It's between U and V.
So it's D.
D, yes.
What represents an injection into a country's circular flow of income?
If the circular flow of income, we're talking about money that comes into the economy. Taxes, corporation tax are taxes on profit. That is inside the economy. It's not circular flow. It's within the economy. Government is making revenue, yes. Interest payment on government bonds, that's the answer anyway, because government bonds means that government are giving loans to different countries, or they have investment in different countries. They are making money from it. So that's money coming into the country. So that's the answer anyway. So, but C, they said a payment to dividends to foreign shareholders. You are paying dividends to foreign shareholders. Money is going out of your country. Are you with me? A repayment of bank loans. That's you are paying bank loans. Money is going out of, it's an expenditure. So the only way government is making money here, or the circular flow of income into this economy, is the interest payment on bonds. So government have investment outside. The government have borrowed some countries' money outside, or having investment. The interest that comes from outside to the government purse is an inflow of income. So the answer is B. Question 20. Yeah, 23, please.
What will be the most likely consequence of an increase in that dependency ratio?
So yeah, they said the consequence of increase in dependency ratio, that means there would have been a situation that has warranted to have high dependency ratio. Do you get the point here?
Yeah.
So the first one, they said a decrease in GDP per head. That is the answer anyway, because a reduction in GDP per head means the income level has fallen. So if the GDP per head of a country is reducing, it means in that country, the output in that level, in that country, because GDP per head is GDP divided by the total population. So that means the total population is exceeding the GDP. That means a lot of people in that economy are having less income. So that means they have to depend on people. Do you understand? So the answer is A. But let's go back to B. They said a decrease in labor productivity. Decrease in labor productivity will only reduce output. Do you get the point? An increase in labor force. An increase in labor force helps the economy. So it's not an answer. Then an increase in unemployment. An increase in unemployment, if people don't have job, it would have been, it's not a consequence of dependency ratio. Do you get the point here? Unemployment is bad for the economy, but unemployment can also solve a problem of inflation. Do you get the point? Unemployment is bad, but it solves a problem of inflation. So the answer is A.
24, which statement is correct? Economic development is necessary for economic growth.
No.
Economic growth and economic development are directly proportional.
No.
Economic growth enables economic development.
Yes.
Yeah.
And economic growth is always sustainable. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So for every economic growth, it helps us for economic development. There's a difference between economic growth and development. Economic growth means output is increasing. Economic development means your GDP, the growth has transferred to development, has transferred to you having more infrastructure, you having better life. Do you understand what development is here? So your country is growing, that is your output, but it's reflecting in the life of people. That is development. So education level, literacy level is improving. Human development index is increasing. These are economic development.
25.
So the answer is C, right?
Yeah.
25.
The diagram shows a prediction possibility curve PPC when the economy is initially at point X and the economy achieves actual economic growth but not potential growth. What would the final position be?
For potential growth here, it should be at B or C. For actual growth, it's just to move a bit, which is at D.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah. 26. It has been estimated by United Nations that the total external debt of developing countries has been increasing by about $425 billion each year. What is least likely to be contributed to this? So,
what could not cause national debt? That is the question. So, disincentive for foreign direct investment through political instability. That was a problem because now companies are not thinking of coming here because of here is not stable politically, there's war. So it will lead to increase in national debt for that country. Increase government subsidies for development of tourism industries. No, that would enable international trade. It's good for the economy. So the answer is B. Then let's check C. They said withdrawal of multinational companies due to delays in the award of government contracts. Multinational companies are living here. It increases your debt because you're not making revenue. So that will also increase debt. The fourth point, worsening of terms of trade with partners in developed economies. You're having problems with your trade, other countries that you are trading with. It's a problem. Do you get it? So A, C, and D are main causes of increase in national debt. So the only thing that is not going to cause it is B, because for B, it increases export of service. You have tourism, that's export of service. So it increases your revenue, not debt. The answer is B. 27.
The following therefore conditions sometimes attached to IMF loans to developing countries, which condition would conflict with the infant industry argument?
So we're talking about, they said which condition would conflict the infant industry argument? The need to allow free trade, that's the answer. Because when free trade is allowed, it means that multinational companies can come here. Well, yes or no? And that will hinder the development of infant industries. Infant industries are the small industries, small businesses that are trying to grow up. But with the existence or with the presence of multinationals, they will not grow. Yes or no? So the answer is A. They said the need to control inflation is good for the economy. The need to have a contractionary fiscal policy, it's good because when we talk about contractionary fiscal policy, we're talking about government using taxation to reduce spending. Do you understand? So it's good for the economy. It will reduce inflation. Do you get the point? B and C are the same, but in different terms. Contractional inflation means contractional fiscal policy is the use of taxation to reduce inflation. And control of inflation is inflation. So B and C are the same. And the need to privatize government enterprises. If you are privatizing government enterprises, it's efficiency, it's good. So the answer is A. 28. 29, sorry.
What is measured in the vertical axis of the Phillips curve?
That's 28. Is that 28? No. 28 is exchange rate. 28. You jumped to 29.
You told me I'm going to start with 28.
I'm sorry there. I'm sorry there. 28.
And which exchange rate regime would the central bank of a country be best able to
pursue an independent monetary policy to control the rate of inflation? We're talking about independent. Because it's independent, it goes to the floating exchange rate. The floating exchange rate is determined by the demand for currency and the supply of currency. So the answer is A.
Okay. 29, what is measured in
the floating exchange rate is the parallel market, like where you can buy dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. Black
market.
Yeah.
29, what is measured in the vertical axis of the Phillips curve? Why do they call it black market?
Yeah, because it's floating. It's determined by it's not determined by the law of the country. So anybody can decide.
Okay.
Do you understand? That's why we call it the black market. Okay. So go to 29. They said the Phillips curve. What is the Phillips curve? The Phillips curve is an economic theory that talks about, that says inflation and unemployment have a stable and what do we call it? A stable and inverse relationship. The Phillips curve has the vertical side and the horizontal side. The vertical side talks about inflation. The horizontal side talks about unemployment.
Okay.
So in economics, the Philip curve talks about the relationship between unemployment and inflation, like I told you earlier. Okay. So the question is now saying that what is measured through the vertical side of the Philip curve, the vertical, is inflation.
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Study workers in poor countries are often less productive than workers using the same technology.
So the answer is C. You know the C, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The rate of inflation.
Yes.
Right.
Number 30 now.
What would be most likely to remedy the situation?
Oh, they said workers in poor countries are often less productive than workers using the same technology in rich countries. They are using the same technology, but they are less productive. What would have been the problem? Education.
So,
Do you understand the point?
yes.
So,
C.
yes, increase investment in education in poor countries so that they can be able to use those equipments. That's done about that.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.